You know the headlines, right? A major company gets hacked, millions of users' data just dumped online, a hospital held for ransom, or maybe some celebrity's social media starts posting absolute garbage. It kind of makes you wonder, is this ever going to end? Well, realistically, no. But today in this explainer, we're going to decode what a hacker actually is. Because honestly, the reality is way more structured and frankly a lot more fascinating than the usual media stereotypes. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the digital lockpickers, then look at white hats, the defenders, followed by black hats, the villains, and gray hats, muddy waters. Finally, we'll wrap up with blurring the moral lines. Section 1. Digital lockpickers. So who actually are these digital lockpickers? First off, we need to completely shatter that old 90s cliche. You know the one, the retro teen with thick glasses hunched over in a dark room flooded with scrolling green code. When we look at who these folks really are, it basically comes down to human nature. Think about it. For as long as locks have existed, there have been lockpicks designed to bypass them. And, to the absolute horror of major corporations everywhere, computer networks are literally no different. But here's the thing. The very first hackers weren't these malicious movie villains. They were really just enthusiastic pioneers. Let's move to and see how this builds across a timeline. Right at the dawn of the digital age, hackers were basically just poking around to see what was even possible with this crazy new tech. A prime example, the phone phreakers from the late 50s straight through the 70s. The whole shebang with phreaking was generating very specific audio tones that early automated phone systems relied on just to trick the network and take control of it themselves. But as computers became a staple in every home and business, that era of playful innocence pretty much came to an end. To give you an idea of just how playful that early era actually was, get this. Among those original phone phreakers was the legendary Steve Wozniak, who, as you know, went on to co-found Apple. Using their phreaking skills, Wozniak and Steve Jobs literally impersonated Henry Kissinger just to prank call the Vatican. No way, right? But it's absolutely true. It was a time driven by sheer, unfiltered curiosity, not destruction. Section 2. White hats, the defenders. Fast forward to today, and we categorize hackers by the hats they wear. Now, this is a system based entirely on personal intentions. And just as a quick aside, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Red Hat Linux operating system. So what exactly is a white hat? Simply put, these are the ultimate good guys of the internet. We're talking security researchers and penetration testers. Their entire 9-to-5 job is countering the bad guys. The absolutely crucial distinction here is permission. Their actions are officially sanctioned by the very companies paying them. They're hired to find the vulnerabilities before anyone else has a chance to exploit them. And we desperately need these defenders on the front lines because their work prevents massive, real-world digital disasters. Take Dan Kaminsky, for instance. This white hat found a massive fundamental flaw in the DNS system that literally could have crippled the entire internet if he hadn't flagged it for a patch. White hats are also the ones who discovered the rootkits that Sony was intentionally hiding on its own music CDs. They find the holes, they report them, and they get them closed. Section 3. Black hats, the villains. Now we're going to pivot sharply to the complete other side of the spectrum. These are the folks responsible for all those terrifying headlines we see. The definition of a black hat is objective, and it's crystal clear. These are the villains. They have absolutely zero problem flouting the law to make a quick buck at someone else's expense. When you hear about millions of passwords or credit cards being stolen and dumped on the dark web, yeah, that is a black hat's handiwork for sure. They intentionally cause damage to systems and businesses, like notoriously stealing money from the customers of massive retailers. Think Target. And this brilliantly illustrates a very clear moral baseline. On one side, you've got your white hats, sanctioned, paid, and inherently defensive. On the complete opposite end, the black hats, totally unsanctioned, profit-driven, and inherently destructive. It's a clean, binary, almost black and white way to look at cybersecurity. Section 4. Gray hats, muddy waters. But as we all know, the real world is rarely a clean binary. Right smack in between the defenders and the villains exists a massive, highly complex, and morally ambiguous middle ground. Enter the gray hat. As the name suggests, they really muddy the waters. The defining characteristic of a gray hat is that, while they generally don't have malicious intentions, they act completely without target permission. And because they lack that official sanction, whatever they decide to do with the data they access comes down entirely to their own, highly subjective, personal moral code. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it systematically breaks down this matrix of intentions. You can see exactly where the tension lies. White hats, they have permission and no malice. Black hats, Total malice, zero permission. But look at the gray hats sitting right there in the middle. They usually lack malicious intent, but they also lack permission. And honestly, it's that lack of permission that makes their actions incredibly unpredictable. Because gray hats operate strictly on a personal code, their actions can plunge individuals right into the deep end of intense ethical and legal controversies. Let's look at two real-world examples. First, there's the famous case of the hacker who discovered a major iPhone crack and actually sold it to the FBI so they could access the San Bernardino shooter's locks data. Then, flip the coin and consider this. A Russian software company developed a program specifically to bypass ebook DRM restrictions. Now, bypassing DRM was totally legal in Russia, but definitely illegal in the US, which led to a massive run-in with the law when one of their employees visited the States. Section 5. Blurring the moral lines. As we look at our modern geopolitical landscape, these rigid definitions, the hats, are constantly being put to the test. Back in the day, major IT firms used to actually hire talented black hats. They'd recognize their skills and offer them lucrative jobs, basically under the condition that the hacker promised to trade in their black hat for a white one. But today, that's completely shifted. Cybersecurity is a massive, legitimate career path with fantastic, entirely legal avenues into security consulting. You simply do not need a history of committing digital crimes to prove your skills anymore. So, the crucial point is this. While it's super easy to label a hacker stealing credit cards from Target as a clear-cut black hat, the broader landscape is intensely debated. I mean, where do we place so-called hacktivists whose illegal actions inspire these huge, impassioned moral arguments online? Or what about massive government spy agencies like the NSA? When individuals or governments break digital locks for reasons of ideology or national security, which hat are they really wearing? It's a provocative question, and for sure it's one that guarantees this fascinating world of cybersecurity will stay in the headlines for a long, long time to come.